Hello. So hi, I've been noticing people doing like quarterly wrap-ups. Now is it the end of April and I'm doing this now when I should have done it at the end of March? Yeah, I am. I read like 18 books, which for some of y'all that's like, oh, I read that within a month, which jealous by the way, but for me that's not a lot. So just put that into perspective, okay? But I was sick like majority of January, and then I don't know what I had in me during February that I also read the same amount as when I was sick. That usually is the opposite way. Starting the year off with some romantasy, with some horniness, with A Kiss of Iron by Clare Sager, which is the Shadows of Tenebrous Court, #1. I finished this on January 4th. I think I was reading this in December and then finished it in January, so like, she's a little bit of a cheat, but like, I rated this 3.5 stars. This is a very smut-forward romantasy. Like, if you're going into this being like, I really want, like, a lot of tension and build up to that kind of stuff, this is not that book. I did try to read the second book to this, but I don't know, I couldn't get through the second book. I did like this. It was definitely like kept me motivated to read. I don't know what it is about romantasies where they're like super fun to where my brain's just like, this was good, let me like soar through 50 other books that I'm currently reading. And this is following like this girl who's spying or like doing espionage on this dude who's coming to court to try and I think marry a princess, if I'm remembering right. It's been a minute since I read this. You follow all of the kind of politics of the court and this fae world, because of course it's fae. The second book that I read that is so good is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which I ended up giving 4 stars. I finished this on January 7th. Now, this book is a sci-fi, and I heard so many people being like, oh, if you're a beginner in sci-fi, or if you just want a really good sci-fi book, read this book. Like, this is one of the most raved about books that I have heard about in such a long time. I'll tell you, it wasn't what I was expecting for it to be. I was expecting, like, Hail Mary, and the way that the cover is, I was expecting, like, what I thought it was, where he, like, wakes up and he's, like, drifting off in space with a tether to the ship, and is like, his whole crew is dead and all of that, and he wakes up and he's like, oh. But no, this is about a scientist who is sent into space to kind of is the last hope of humanity. We follow him as he regains his memory and understanding of why this mission is happening and kind of who he is also. And then there's also some very fun other antics that happen. I would say if you love like quirky fantasy, this does have humor in it, and I do think that this was really well written. I would absolutely recommend this, okay? All the people who rave about it, at least in my opinion, are correct. This is really good. And this was very close to being like a 5-star for me because just the writing and also sci-fi for some reason this year especially has just been so like intriguing and good. So I just ate this up so much. The next book that I read, which is A Dance Macabre by Naomi Loud, I gave 2.5, and I finished that on January 15th. So I got this recommendation from, oh no, I've completely forgotten her name, but she's a very cool, not necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily categorize her as like a booktuber, but she recommended this book, and I did read this incredibly fast. Listen, I've done this twice before, where I've read really bad, but like very smut-forward books very quickly, even though I hate them. There's sometimes you just gotta have fun, right? Again, romantasy, I guess, because of the, like, is it sins or is it, like, gods? I've, like, completely forgotten. So each of them is a, like, embodiment and representation of these, like, horrible whims and people pray to them and they fall on just kill people and talk about how gruesome it is and like are laughing and like really depraved. Again, I would say don't read this if you don't want a clean and tension built romance book. I would say just like read anything but this. This is just purely like for the romance. There's a second book. This is just purely fun. But this next book that I read, which I actually have a physical copy of, is Where Sleeping Girls Lie. I don't want to butcher her name, so I will put it up. But I've read so many good books at the beginning of this year. It's crazy. I rated this 4.5 and I finished this on January 18th. This is so good. This is the same author as Ace of Spades, which I did read. I also have that book physically as well, also in hardcover. I will say I did like this one more just because of, I think, the characters in this, because you get so many unique and different kinds of characters and ones that you actually like and aren't super suspicious of, or at least I wasn't majority of the time. And also I will say please look up the trigger warnings for this book. This deals with talks of assault and kind of the fraternity aspect of different schools, even though this is like, it's a very good school to get into, but it's not a college if I'm remembering correctly. I don't believe it is. This is also queer, which is very cute and very nice. I don't even know how to describe this. It is a mystery, just like Ace of Spades is, and it centers around this girl who has this mysterious background, who goes to this school, who makes friends with this girl and a guy on her first day, and the girl ends up going missing. She's roommates with the girl as well, and so it sets off into a whole mystery of our new girl and the other girl's friend trying to find her and figure out and untying all of these webs within this school and the students there. It was the plot twist, didn't see coming. The whole character reveal for our main girl, didn't see it coming. There's so much to this book that is so good. It's so good. The next book that I read is A Kingdom of Wicked, which is the first book in the Kingdom of Wicked trilogy, and that's by Kerri Maniscalco, and I rated that 3 stars. I finished that on January 23rd. So, this book is so, like, of its time, like, past romance YA, like, so stereotypical and very much in that writing, which I personally do not like. So that's why I didn't continue this series. Now, I was going to read this so that I could read I've completely forgotten the name of it, but I saw that Sarah Caroli got her, like, little blurb put in the book, and it also, the way that she was talking about it and describing it sounded really good. And I know you don't have to read these books, but it definitely adds a lot of context to it. But I don't really want to read them. This is following, like, witches, and also, like, all of the 7 deadly sins are, like, embodiments of these dudes and, like, demons, and they all have their own houses, and our girl's sister goes missing, and I forget, I don't think it's a spoiler, but she dies, and so it's her trying to figure out all of that. My precious baby, A Curious Beginning, Veronica Speedwell, by Deanna Raybourn, and I gave that 4.5, and I finished that on January 28th. I honestly should have given this 5 stars. It's so good. It's not my favorite book out of the series so far, even though I'm only on, like, the 5th book. So, this series, okay, Katie is reading. I will never question any of your recommendations again, okay? This is so good. And I, like always, was like, oh, but it's not fantasy or sci-fi, so I'm probably not gonna like it that much. Shut up. Step out of your comfort zone, girl. But this is following Veronica Speedwell, and then we have our main male character, Stoker. And basically this series is, they're like scientists, but it's set in the Victorian era, so obviously they're not like, but they are solving mysteries together, even though they don't really want to be solving mysteries together. The banter is so good. The banter is so good. Okay, I don't know what else to tell you, but we follow them on a series of mysteries. This first one is kind of solving why people are after Veronica Speedwell, and so it's also Stoker being like protective of her. But I do think that this is not only incredibly written, the characters are really good, the world is historically accurate, the everything about it is just so good, okay? And I'm a changed woman now that I've read these, okay? The next book that I read was Graveyard Shift by M.L. Rio, and I gave it 2 stars. And I also finished it on January 29th. I think I was doing a readathon at this time, so like I was also finishing books because of that. But I mean, you've probably heard a lot of people crap on these books, and we're gonna be very honest with each other. It's understandable why. Okay, listen, I've heard so many good things about M.L. Rio's If We Were Villains, and I do really want to read that. Here's the thing. This book would have benefited from being longer, and I say that because this has complexity to it that doesn't benefit from it being shorter, right? And also the characters, because we have so many, it also would have helped to kind of get more depth and exploration of them, and it would also have created more tension and fear for what's happening in this book if we had more time to sit with it. And also just kind of the convenience of the way that things went and all of this. And I feel like it wasn't concluded in the best way. This, I don't even know how to describe. The Graveyard Shift is basically these group of insomniac people who meet at this graveyard and they all smoke together. This is multiple POV, and they see this dude dump something in a grave, and it kind of goes from there. So it is a mystery, but it is also horror, but it's very not good. I really like the idea because I really love this kind of stuff that's in this that we deal with, and I just personally don't see enough of this kind of topic, and I would have loved for like it not to be another short book about it. Now that's very vague and confusing. I can't help it. Okay, I don't want to spoil this book. It's 126 pages. I can't talk that much about what actually happens in this without giving away like basically the whole plot, but it's interesting. I just wish that it was done better. The next book that I read is A Perilous Undertaking, Veronica Speedwell 2. It's the second book in the series by Deanna Raybourn, and I gave it 4 stars. I also finished this on February 1st. Jeez Louise, I was reading. Girl, I was reading. This is the second book, and the tension just keeps getting high. You wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't even think it, but it does. Okay, the tension somehow continues, and somehow even better. Okay, this book is so much fun because we're kind of settling into their relationship with each other, but we are also exploring Stoker's background, because in the first book we were exploring Veronica's, and now we are exploring Stoker's, and boy is it a ride. It is such a fun series, and so fast paced as well. I think each of these books are under like 400 pages, so they're, at least for me, for some reason my brain, if it's under 400 pages, I can just go through it so quickly for no reason at all. So this is like incredibly fun. And did I just get the 5th book from Libby, and am I going to probably start it tomorrow? Yes I am. The next book that I read was Beartown by Fredrik Backman, and I gave that 4 stars. I also finished it on February 6th. So, funny story. I do have a funny story for this, even though this story is not funny. I got the first book, and then I literally ordered the second book, and then saw that the entire series got put on Kindle Unlimited. But I will say, also check the trigger warnings for this. This talks about assault and is following this apparently Swedish, I didn't realize that, but apparently Fredrik Backman is a Swedish author, and that these works get translated. Hockey team, and this girl and her family, her dad is the general manager to the hockey team, and he was a NLH player and came back to his town to try and help out his team. This is very realistic and very hard-hitting, and I do really love the way that this was handled, because I was very scared about a male author writing about the subject of assault, and I think that he did a very good job, which was very shocking to me. I remember being very terrified of it. This is also very much out of my comfort zone because it is more contemporary, and so I was very nervous that I wasn't going to like it, but I think that he does such a beautiful job with the writing and the characters, and kind of contrasting them, because this is also multi POV, and kind of showing each aspect to the different people of the town, and kind of showing you the good and the bad. He doesn't shy away from the horrendous, horrible things. He doesn't sit there and sugarcoat stuff. This is very good, but like I said, please check the trigger warnings. Don't just go into this because a bunch of people are saying that they like it and it's popular. But yes, very, very heavy subject, but I think was done incredibly well. The next book that I read is Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 1, which I finished on February 8th, and then rated 4 stars. This is a very fun manga. I haven't read many this year, actually. I think this might be one of the only ones I read this year. This is following a, teenager and their, ghost club, and they have this weird, artifact thing that they have, and it kind of goes from there, where we learn about the Jujutsu Kaisen and kind of what they are. I don't really know how to even describe this, just because, again, mangas are very short and I don't want to give anything that is potentially a spoiler away. But, yeah, fun. But I don't really know how much I want to keep continuing the series. But I do think that it is fun. I just don't know if it's necessarily for me, at least. Because I will say I do like Chainsaw Man and that kind of stuff, but that's also kind of within, their characters are within the same age range and stuff, but that is, I would say, this is kind of gruesome, but Chainsaw Man is a lot more gruesome than this. And then I read A Treacherous Curse, which is the third book in the Veronica Speedwell series, which I gave 4.5 and finished on February 10th. I was really pumping these out, baby girl. Also, very fun. I will say that this one is, if you're expecting for something to happen in it, it's not going to be satisfying. It's very, let's just say, it's not my favorite one of the series, but it is very fun still. And I do think that she was very much drawing on the tension and banter in this, and kind of being like, but this mystery was also chaotic. the whole thing. And I always love these kinds of books because the reveals in them, where they're gathering everybody and they're like, you did this and this happened and this, and it's always so fun. Especially because with these ones, especially, I'm not able to actually guess who did what usually, or at least so far, and so it's very fun to actually read it, because I'm not sitting there being and even if I have slightly known what's going to happen, it's still really fun just because of Veronica and Stoker, our characters are so good and fun, and the chaos that they bring is also incredible. And then I DNF'd this book and then restarted it. Thank you to my friend Abby. She also has the same name. And that is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monika Kim, and I gave that a 4.75. I finished that on February 13th. This, if you're looking for a shorter but still very hard-hitting, chaotic, crazy talks of heavier discussions, this is absolutely that. This is about a girl whose father leaves, and her mother is basically a wreck and is going through so much, and our main character is in college, and her mother gets a new boyfriend who is racist and is doing a bunch of microaggressions and is like basically the worst person ever, and our main character starts having dreams about his eyes and eating them. Please look up trigger warnings. I know I've said that about so many of these books, but this talks about stalkers and like a lot of stuff. Okay, so look up trigger warnings for that. Like, I'm being very serious, please do. This is technically a good for her horror story, which if you don't know is basically like the person who's violating or is just horrible to a female main character and then they end up getting their justice. That's what this is. And it's very... the ending is so good. Okay, listen, this is only like 277 pages and I think it's still on Kindle Limited. Please read this. If you're looking for a good horror to get into, this is it, okay? I don't even know why I DNF'd this. Like, I should not have. I'm so sorry for ever disrespecting you, Monika Kim. And then we have A Dangerous Collaboration, which is the 4th book in the Veronica Speedwell series, which I gave a 4.25 and finished on February 21st. Listen, have I been giving a bunch of books very high rating? Yes. But is that because I had read a ton of good books at the beginning of the year? Yes it is. Okay? Listen to the booktubers when they recommend you good books. Okay? That's all I can say. Because I've read so many that are good. This book is crazy. Oh, wait. I'm up to book 6 in this. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that. I'm up to book 6 in the Veronica Speedwell series. Girl, there's only like 3 more. Oh my gosh. So, like, I don't even know what to say about this. This book is also chaos. And I don't know what to say about it without spoiling anything. So, like, that's dope. That's really cool. And then the next book that I read is Us Against You, which is the second Beartown in the trilogy, and by Mr. Fredrik Backman, and I gave that 4.25. Again, these 0.5 ratings, and I finished that on March 1st. This continues following our characters from the first book, and it also discusses homophobia and what it means to be in sports when you are gay, and is also very heavy, and also the talks about assault and kind of the town dealing with that is also continued within this book. So please look up any trigger warnings for these books, just because it is a very heavy topic. And again, I think he did a very wonderful job writing about this. Now I do wish, because I read a lot of books that are like it, where they have like it is technically, like, I would deem it as unrealistic endings, but he doesn't have that. So if you're wanting like super satisfying, like go and get 'em endings, although there is like semi in the first book, but these are kind of very realistic as to what would happen in the real world. And it's very angering, but I think it is very important to kind of read about that, and then also to carry on the discussion about that afterwards. And again, I think that these are very well done, and I do need to read the 3rd book. I have not yet read it, and I can literally load it up on my Kindle right now. But that book is like 600 pages, and for some reason my brain don't want to do that. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how back-to-back these were. A Murderous Relation, Veronica Speedwell number 5. I gave that 3.75, and I finished it on March 3rd. Yes, I know I have a problem with it. I was literally pouring through these books, okay? Like, when I tell you it was bad, it was bad. I would sit down to read like maybe 50 to 100 pages. I would read 200 something pages. in one sitting. Okay, listen, I have a problem, okay? But you know what? I finished this March 3rd. I have not yet read the 6th book. So, like, I don't have an addiction. That's not true. I can put it down anytime I want. I don't really know what else to say about this that I haven't already said. Characters are good. World historically accurate. I'm a history nerd, so of course I loved this, and the chaos is chaosing. The next book that I read is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and I gave that 4 stars and finished that on March 7th. I am kind of rethinking my rating now. This, I will say, this is gonna sound very weird, but you can tell that this is written by a male author. And I don't say that because he's, like, overly sexualizing women and being like, they talk with their breasts. But it is definitely, like, I don't know, I just get more masculine vibes when I'm reading this. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Because we're following a male main character. And I do think that this does have definitely very emotional aspects to it. It's just the kind of thing that threw me off in this is because we're going through, like, the multiverse and, like, Schrodinger's cat, like, whole thing. It's very interesting and it's very cool. But kind of some of the, like, thing that our main male character does with, like, alternate realities is not necessarily my favorite. Now listen, this dude's going through a lot, so I will excuse some of it, but it is very crazy. But this also made me scratch around for more sci-fi, because this was very good. I would say that unless you don't want to have a kind of info dumpy book, don't read this. I forget what theory it technically is, but I personally really like learning about that kind of stuff, so I didn't really mind at all when it was talking about, like, how these things work and all of that. If you're looking for something that's just kind of like chaos is happening and it's in a sci-fi world, don't read this. Don't read this, because this talks a lot about, like, the mechanics of how this is happening and why and all of that, and I think that that's very fun. I also think that this, at least because I'm not a scientist, I think that this does a very good job of talking about it in a way that at least even my dumb self can understand. So yeah, I think that this is also a very fun sci-fi thing. I truly, like, every time I'm like, oh, I read fantasy and sci-fi, I don't read that much sci-fi. And every time I read it, I'm always like, this is so good. Anyways, the next book that I read was An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson, and I gave that 3 stars and finished it on March 16th. Okay, it's very funny to me, because I remember people being like, this is her worst book, don't read this book. And I think it's because it's one of her first books that she ever wrote. I wasn't expecting for me to not like it as much as this. Okay, I read Sorcery of Thorns and Vespertine by her. I still absolutely adore Vespertine. I will say it was like a couple years ago that I read those, and I was definitely, like, in the age range for that. But it was still, I loved both of those worlds, especially Vespertine, just because I think it's cool that, like, a nun has, like, powers and stuff. I don't know, it's very cool to me. I really would love to see a sequel to that book, but this, I don't know if it's just because I don't really love Fae that much, or if it's just because this was, like, the romance was very quick to get to, like, romance, and it was just, like, not as much depth and character growth. Well, not character growth. Just wasn't as, like, I don't even know how to describe, like, the fact that it was so different feeling to her other books. But I will say, I agree with a lot of people in saying that you can just skip this one. None of her books, as far as I know, are interconnected, so I would just say, read Sorcery of Thorns. That one is so good. Read Vespertine. I absolutely adored that book. That's actually the one that I started with, and I think that her writing is really good, but for some reason, just maybe because she was a beginner to it in that one, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. And then our last book, I know I've been yabbering on for a very long time, so I'll shut up in a second. I read Bunny by Mona Awad, and I gave it 3.75, and I finished that on March 29th. This book is one of my friend's favorites, and so of course I had to read it. Like, if you have any friends that read books and they absolutely love a book, you know that they won't shut up. I'm one of those people too. I won't shut up unless you read my favorite book. And when you do, I want to know everything. I want to know how you feel about it, okay? Now, this book, I will say, is definitely, like, I wish that there was more connecting it and more, like, less mystery to it. I wish that there was, I guess, more pages and more exposition, more, like, kind of everything, because it's not necessarily that it's confusing, it's just kind of, I wish that it wasn't as jumpy as it sometimes feels, and that we got more time to kind of watch everything devolve, because this is a horror book. I think there's a prequel to this coming out, which I absolutely will read, but this is about a girl who goes to college and is in, like, these writing classes, and in those writing classes there's this group of girls who call each other Bunny and are, like, dressed in pastels and have bleach blonde hair and eat only, like, salads and stuff, like college fraternities, like sorority, like crazy kind of girls, and it kind of devolves from there. I will say, if you're like me and you don't like animal death, don't read this. I do really think that this has an important discussion, and I do think that this is a very crazy and absurd and makes you second guess and not trust our narrative kind of book. I also really do love the, like, descent into madness and the kind of obscurity of what actually is happening, and just also the reveals are crazy, and also I had to kind of talk with my friend to fully understand what had happened, and there are some times where you hate that when a book is doing that, but for me personally, with books like these, I don't really mind that at all. So this was quite the eventful first reading months of the year. I have slowed down quite a lot, which does suck, but yeah, I've only read 3 books since Bunny, and it's now the end of April, which the thing is, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, that's, like, not a lot at all, and you're, like, so bad if you're only reading, like, 1 book a year. No, for me personally, who has time to be reading as of right now, for me to not be reading as much as I can and to be kind of getting into a slump sucks, okay? Because I want to be one of those people that reads all of these books, and there's so many books that I want to read, and just, like, I just wish I could jam every book that I wanted into my brain and just absorb what's in it. But yeah, that was my first quarter of the year wrap up, and I read a lot of different genres, a lot of different kind of books and craziness. I am very lucky to have started out the year with a lot of really good books. Now, I am starting to get into a slump, which does suck, but it is kind of inevitable if you were like me, where you read a ton and then kind of slowly but surely get into a slump after you read a bunch. But yeah, hopefully you've had a good time reading as well, and let me know if you've read any of these, what your thoughts are on them. If you recommend any books based off of the ones that I've been raving about. Listen, I've been listening to people's recommendations a lot more recently, and they've been getting me places, okay? But thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will hopefully see you next week when I post again. Oh, this is so late, but hopefully you enjoy the recap.